familiar registered instantly. He sat bolt upright, his heart pounding with a sudden icy dread. "The babies!" he choked out, the words a horrified whisper. His mind, still grappling with the remnants of sleep, struggled to comprehend the cacophony of terror that had erupted. He looked wildly around the dim firelight. The playing area was empty. The awful sounds were coming from the direction of the forest, from the darkness that lay just beyond their camp. Maya awoke to Dasa's cry, her eyes wide with a dawning, unspeakable fear. The screams of the babies, particularly the desperate plea from Mama, pierced her like 1,000 needles. She scrambled to her feet, her face a mask of disbelief and burgeoning panic. "No!" she screamed, her voice cracking with anguish. "My child!" Her maternal instinct, a powerful, undeniable force, surged through her. The thought of her baby, of any of the babies in danger, was an unbearable torment. She was ready to run, to face whatever horror awaited. Dole, the colossal T-Rex, erupted from her slumber. The desperate cries of her offspring, the scent of blood and unfamiliar predators in the air, triggered an immediate, violent reaction. A low, guttural growl rumbled from deep within her chest, a sound that promised terrible retribution. Her massive head lifted. Her golden eyes, now blazing with fury, scanned the darkness. The intensified hum of the glowing vines seemed to resonate with her rising rage, their light pulsing in time with the furious beat of her ancient heart. The protector was awake, and she was furious. Section 4. The Pursuit and the Unthinkable Hope. Crushed anew. Dasa and Dole moved as one, a blur of desperate speed. Dasa snatched his spear, his knuckles white as he gripped the familiar wood. Dole, a mountain of enraged muscle, thundered towards the source of the cries. Her every footfall shook the barren earth. Maya followed, stumbling, tears streaming down her face, her heart shattering with every step. They charged towards the forest edge, towards the sounds of unimaginable horror, driven by a primal need to protect, to save what might still be saved from the bloody chaos. The Carnotaurus, their initial bloody work complete with 3 of the young, spotted the escaping T-Rex baby. The small creature was a fleeting target, scrambling desperately towards the distant, dim light of the now abandoned campfire. Its tiny legs pumped furiously, but the predators were gaining. Their longer strides devoured the distance. Their horns, glinting malevolently in the pale moonlight, were like wicked scythes aimed at the terrified fugitive. The chase was a brutal, uneven contest, a desperate flight for life against relentless, savage pursuers. Hope for this last small one hung by the thinnest of threads. Just as Dole's third baby, the last of her trio, seemed poised to reach the relative safety of the approaching adults, disaster struck anew with sickening cruelty. The second Carnotaurus, momentarily obscured by a jagged outcrop of rock, lunged from the side. Its attack was swift, unexpected, and utterly devastating. But its target was not Dole's escaping baby. In a horrifying twist of fate, it was Dasa's other child, a second, younger infant, perhaps kept closer to Maya, unseen in the initial chaos, that was struck down. This final brutal blow extinguished the last of Dasa and Maya's hopes. The brief did indeed imply 2 of Dasa's children were lost. The stained glass world fractured again, this time into a maelstrom of deepest crimson and obsidian black. The light of the mystical vines flared violently, bathing the scene in an infernal glow. The loss was absolute, unbearable. Dasa had witnessed the unthinkable twice in mere moments. The brief hope that one of Dole's young might survive was now overshadowed by this fresh personal devastation. The Carnotaurus had not just killed, they had systematically annihilated the future of this fragile family, leaving a gaping wound of despair and rage. Section 5. The Onset of Fury, Parents Unleashed. A sound ripped from Dole's throat. It was not a roar of challenge, but a bellow of pure, unadulterated fury and profound anguish. It was the sound of a mother whose world had been shattered. Her massive form, moments before focused on rescue, now radiated an incandescent rage. She charged the nearest Carnotaurus, the one responsible for the latest atrocity, her immense jaws agape, ready to tear, to destroy. The ground trembled beneath her thunderous advance. The stained glass patterns of the world seemed to warp and swirl around her, reflecting her consuming wrath. Dasa, witnessing the brutal end of his second child, felt something snap within him. The horror, the grief, the sheer injustice of it all coalesced into a single burning point of rage. Tears streamed down his face, mingling with sweat and grime. But his eyes blazed with a cold, desperate fury. "For my babies!" he screamed, his voice raw with pain and vengeance. He lunged at the second Carnotaurus, his spear aimed true, driven by a grief so profound it transcended fear. He was no match for the beast's size, but his attack was filled with the desperate strength of a father pushed beyond endurance. Maya collapsed to her knees, her screams devolving into heartbroken sobs. "No, my child, they're all gone! They're all gone!" she wailed, the words torn from her soul. The sight of her losses, so sudden, so complete, was too much to bear. She could only watch, helpless, as Dasa and Dole threw themselves into a suicidal battle against the horned demons that had stolen everything from them. Her grief was a tangible presence, a heavy shroud that settled over the blood-soaked earth. The wasteland, moments before a place of deceptive calm, had transformed into a hellish arena. The air was thick with the scent of blood, and the cacophony of battle roars, screams, the thud of impacts, the tearing of flesh. The mystical glowing vines pulsed with an almost violent intensity, their light shifting from eerie blues and greens to furious reds and deep, ominous purples. The heart-wrenching terror and devastating loss had now fully escalated, igniting a desperate, vengeful rage. The fight for survival had become a fight for retribution. A maelstrom of retribution Dole's unchained fury. The screenplay catapults the audience from abject horror into a vortex of raw, unadulterated fury. This is Act 4, The Battle and Vengeance. The transition is instantaneous. Dole, the T-Rex mother, witnesses the brutal demise of her young, and the scene ignites. Her grief does not manifest as paralysis. Instead, it transmutes into an explosive, terrifying rage. The screenplay describes her clash with the first Carnotaurus as a primal spectacle. This is not merely a fight between two prehistoric beasts. It is a mother's vengeance, a desperate, violent response to an unbearable loss, played out on a canvas of shattered light and elemental power. The emotional core of this moment is palpable, visceral. Dole's massive jaws, instruments of sustenance and gentle nudges for her babies, become weapons of devastating retribution. The screenplay details her clamping onto the Carnotaurus's neck, a death grip born of ultimate despair. Around them, the mystical glowing vines are no longer passive observers. They pulse wildly, their light shifting, intensifying, casting the combatants in a surreal, almost demonic glow. This visual element is crucial. It transforms the brutal fight into something more profound, a battle imbued with a strange, terrible magic. The stained glass style, always present, would fracture the light into sharp, dynamic shards, reflecting the chaos and violence of the encounter. The sound design in this segment is engineered for maximum impact. The screenplay calls for roaring, the snapping of bones, and the heavy thuds of colossal bodies. These sounds are not just background noise, they are an integral part of the emotional tapestry. Dole's roars in particular would be a symphony of anguish and fury, a sound that tears through the wasteland and resonates deep within the audience. The previously described howling wind seems to amplify, becoming a chorus to the carnage. The intensified hum of the glowing vines adds a layer of otherworldly tension, suggesting that even the mystical elements of this world are agitated by the unfolding tragedy and the subsequent explosion of rage. The battle is depicted as brutal, swift, and decisive on Dole's part. There is no drawn-out struggle. Her fury lends her overwhelming strength. The screenplay emphasizes the raw power of a mother pushed beyond her limits. The Carnotaurus, a terrifying predator in its own